Welcome to the Dyslexic podcast, where lived experience meets real conversation. We shine a light on the stories that need to be heard, with honest and inspiring conversations with people with dyslexia and other neurodivergent conditions like dyscalculia, dysgraphia, ADHD, and autism. The Dyslexic podcast is more than just a show. It's a community, a space for connection, and a movement to rethink dyslexia. Subscribe today and join us on our journey, one story at a time. I do sometimes get sidetracked in unpacking the dishwasher or hanging out the washing or doing half and half and then going back to work and thinking, what was I doing again? But there's so many benefits to working from home that I just love now. And I mean, our team is global and we don't have any offices. We all work from home. And as we get bigger, we're lucky enough to be able to come together more frequently to bring, well, at least the Australian team together. But yes, that's enabled different people from different backgrounds to be able to work from home in ways that they couldn't before. That's been really exciting. And we get the opportunity to hire amazing people then because of the way that we're structured. And the majority of us are neurodivergent. So again, that's, for them being able to work from home is really helpful to be able to do different things and take those breaks when you need it. And but sometimes it is easy to get distracted by the dog.
I agree. Look, you can get distracted by the dog. You could get distracted by, like you said before, hanging out the washing. But I guess I saw a graph the other day, and even with those, distractions, or what we're calling as distractions working from home, the thing that people don't take into consideration is the walk-up conversations that you would have at someone's desk. They're going for coffees, they're going for lunches. All of that was productivity that was taken away from you being able to deliver an outcome inside of an office setting. Since coming home, you might have a quick lunch because you've got back-to-back meetings, or you've got a full day of Teams meetings that you need to deal with. So having those micro distractions of going and hanging out some washing or giving the dog a cuddle briefly, that is still less distraction time than what you actually had in the office full time.
Yeah, and I often forget to have lunch because I'm working straight through, so I don't even take that lunch break I would have taken if I was in the office, because you're often socializing and taking that time to connect in with your team when you're together, which wouldn't be classified as a distraction. But yes, if you go and hang out the washing, then you're being distracted and you're not being productive.
That's
Where
right.
really, if I hang out the washing now, it means I can probably work longer later because it's done and dusted, and then I can go and pick up Ava. So yes, it's a different way, isn't it? But coming back to your to the beginning of your journey, how old were your children when they were diagnosed?
So one of them was diagnosed when they were 4, and he was diagnosed early, when they were going through COVID. So COVID lockdowns were a bit of a pain when it came to the boys starting school. They were in kinder at the time, and when we were thrown into lockdown, we were given, almost a telephone book worth of paperwork or homework that they were both required to do over that time. One son would go and do it and smash it out, his daily tasks out, and then he had the entire day to go and do whatever else he wanted. The other one um, would refuse to do the work, or would sit in front of the work for several hours and only get maybe one page done. So we noticed that there were differences between them both, and we weren't quite sure what was causing that. But when we then went and had him diagnosed, we understood that he was autistic, and he had his brain obviously was not working as his brother's was. And then my other son, he wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until after he broke his leg, which was about 2 years ago. Um, Before that, he was able to sort of function at work, at school, quite fine. But when he broke his leg and he was at home for 6 weeks, bound to a wheelchair, going back to school, he found it really difficult to focus and just couldn't do the simple tasks that he was able to do previously. And what we found was that he was ADHD, and he needed the medication to assist him in being able to focus more in class as well.
What do you think that trigger was when he broke his leg? Do you think it was just that then it made it become more noticeable for you? Was it because before he was moving about a lot more and like he could use his energy in different ways?
I think that was probably a big portion of it. So prior to breaking his leg, he was quite physically active. After breaking his leg, he wasn't allowed to do sport for 9 months because
Wow.
he snapped his femur in two. So the doctors just went, no sport, otherwise you're going to break it again. And they were like, oh, okay. So for him, that was a really big impact because it impeded his ability to go and do the things that he loved the most, like
Mm.
parkour. Um, so not having that ability to have an outlet to get rid of that energy that he was originally burning through sport or other activities, I think really impacted his ability to focus in class.
Yeah. Yeah, that physical energy um, can be really obvious if you don't get to use it up during the day. By the end of the day, it feels like it's stored in there and it all explodes out at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, even in myself, um, if I'm stuck in meetings all day and I haven't had an opportunity to go for a run or go to the gym, I struggle to just focus on being able to do something. So it's normally, hey, wife, can you look after the kids? I need to go for a 30-minute run just to burn off some energy, and then I'll come back and we can go back to doing things ourselves. Um, but yeah, it's challenging, but I think if you can balance it, it works well.
And so, what are the strategies you've put in as a family, having both your boys neurodivergent? How does that work day to day? Because, as a neurodivergent parent, I find it quite challenging, especially at the end of the day, trying to regulate my emotions. Um, and I don't have physical energy. I have internal energy that, like, where my brain doesn't stop all day. Um, and so, by the end of the day, you're mentally very, very tired. So, how do you manage two neurodivergent children when you're both working and, you've got lots of other competing priorities? Like, what are some of the things that really help your family manage?
Look, I think it's extremely hard to kind of we all struggle. Um, I think the one thing that helps myself, as I said before, was going for a run. I typically go for a run in the morning to kind of self regulate myself. Um, and then with the boys, it's trying to manage their expectations around access to things like devices or TV. Um, Although it's a great opportunity for them to wind down at the end of the day, at the same time we need them to be able to still be able to focus on their ability to do their homework that is required from the school. So we limit what we've done is limit things like TV time, or we've set screen times on their, say, iPads or their switches, so that they say only get 30 minutes of switch time between the time they get home from school and say 5 o'clock, and then their iPads are locked from 7 o'clock, so that we've got an hour before bedtime to do that wind down, that ability to have the showers, sit down and do a reader, um, and just have no screen time for that hour before bed, because I think that helps them start to regulate themselves, and then they can jump into bed and they normally listen to an audio book or just some music, and they often drift to sleep from there.
Yeah, screens are a big issue, aren't they?
Yep.
And I find that like it takes up to an hour and a half to get to sleep after we've had that hour of wind down. that's really hard. The physical energy she still has at the end of the day. I don't know how she does it.
Little
I'm
Energizer bunnies.
exhausted. And then she's still got all this energy, and I think this is my bedtime. You need to be asleep. But I find that it's really, that part is really hard getting her to sleep. Even though she was such a good sleeper when she was small, but it's completely different now.
Yeah, the boys. I mean, the boys have always slept 10 to 12 hours a night, which is great. The challenge, I guess, that we've found was since starting them both on Ritalin or medication for the ADHD, they've um, one of them has needed to go on a slow release melatonin to help him get to sleep, because the medication, even though it's out of his system technically, from because he's only got the short acting Ritalin, um, he still finds it challenging. So with a slow release melatonin, it helps him kind of settle down and stay asleep longer, instead of kind of waking up. Um, my other son hasn't had that problem with his, which is great. He did have like a sleep joel at some point, just to kind of give him a bit of a herbal remedy to help. But he's finding now that he doesn't need that at all. So he's just self settling and going back to sleep himself.
And when they were diagnosed, or when your first son was diagnosed and then your second, as like a dad, how did you find, because we have lots of parents that we work with that find it quite isolating, particularly if then they go on to get diagnosed themselves. But did you find it quite isolating, or were you able to connect in with support for yourself when the diagnosis started to come through for your children? Was there anything that kind of helped you in that moment? Because we often, it can be quite scary, and the research says that for some parents there's a grief and there's lots of different emotions that happen when their child's diagnosed with a neurodivergent condition or difference. Was there anything that helped you, if there's any parents that listening that might have be going through a diagnosis with their children at the moment, that helped you during that time?
I guess for me, I think the first thing that I was provided as soon as my son was diagnosed with autism was the link to Amaze. So Amaze is a local Melbourne charity that supports families with autism. They also advocate through policy change for the government. They connected us with them, and Autism Connect, to be able to ask any questions that we may have had beyond that. For me, I wanted to know more and more about how his brain worked and how I can best support him. The challenge, I guess, at the time was getting the right supports in place so that I was able to not only help myself understand how to best support him, but also to ensure that he was being supported as well. I think that was probably the biggest one for me. Other than that, it was I have tried to find almost any book that I could possibly find to learn more about autism, ADHD, or neurodivergence in general, just to better understand how their brains work, and even potentially how my brain works. I'm not diagnosed myself, but there's a high chance, given that both ADHD and autism are like in the 70 to 80% hereditary, profile markers. So it's either come from myself or my wife at some point.
If you haven't done so already, make sure you sign up to our mailing list so you can keep up to date with everything we are doing at Rethink Dyslexia. So head to rethinkdyslexia.com.au. And don't forget, if there's anything you heard today that was distressing, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.